All right, it's Saturday, October 22nd, 2022, and you're listening to Jared and Mike Tell It Right podcast. Well, guys, obviously it's just me today. No Jared. I don't know. He's fucking riding mechanical bull somewhere. So we'll have him back next time, but just me today. So it's gonna be an awkward episode. Just giving you a forewarning there. Um But yeah, guys, so today I wanted to do something a little different. Instead of just getting into a movie, kind of wanted to do my little own analysis or I don't know, report on the movie Rust. So if you guys remember, back on October 21st, 2022 or 21, I'm sorry. There in the news we all heard that there was a terrible tragedy on the set of the movie called Rust. Rust was a movie that was actually let's kind of get into that. Rust was an upcoming movie about a young boy who left to fend for himself and his younger brother following their parents' death in the 1880s in Kansas. The boys end up going on the run with their long estranged grandfather after he's sentenced to hang for the accidental killing of a local rancher. So this film was actually written by Alec Baldwin and director Joel Souza, and it also starred Alec Baldwin, and it was supposed to also star Jenkin Ackles. If you know him, probably from The Boys and Supernatural. And then we got Francis Fisher and Travis Fimmel. So basically, we have this movie that was being shot in New Mexico, and this accident happened, taking a life and actually injuring another person too. So this movie actually started production October 8th, 2021, and then it wasn't until October 21st. So at the Bonanza Ranch outside of Santa Fe, production was actually put to a halt because there was an accidental discharge of a firearm by Alec Baldwin. Now that accidental discharge took the life of cinematographer Haylana Hutchinson and then badly wounded director Joel Souza. So again, unfortunately, Haylana Hutchinson died. Joel Souza, he was wheeled out of there. I think he had some surgeries. He was in a, I don't want to say that he was in critical. He was in a stable, but he was in a pretty bad shape too at the same time. But he came out of it. But Helena was airlifted to Albuquerque, and she died on arrival. So they weren't able to save her. That's how it kind of went down. And however, that's happened. It's about a year later now, and there's still talks about bringing this movie back, especially since Alec is actually made a settlement with Matt Hutchinson, who is Helena's widowed husband. Out of this deal, Matt Hutchinson is now he's a producer on this film, so he's got a say and whatnot. You know, I get it. You want to see your wife's project to the end. He's not a cinematographer, but he can produce it and just make sure that this finishes. And then she didn't die for nothing. I get that. That's actually kind of cool, but it's not cool because his wife's dead. But yeah, as of right now, Santa Fe County sheriffs are still, or DA, sheriffs, whoever, they're still investigating this. No one's brought in charges to anybody. And I guess the one big question is, who's at fault? Who is it? Who did it? What happened? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Rust. I don't know. I love it. I love this. I just I think it was going to be a good movie from, that description I just gave you there, but I think it's an ironic description, just like an accidental killing. And here's Alec now. He's not on the run, but I mean, it's kind of the same situation. It's just weird. Well, let's get into a little background of this. So with all that said, so let's go back a year. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at everything that was on the table. Even though this was an accident, there's a lot of stories that pointed out what had been happening for like the past 10 days that this set was operating. Um, what was revealed early on, there were complaints of poor working conditions, long hours. Most of the staff were from outside of New Mexico anyway, so they were told they would be put up into hotels, I believe in Santa Fe, which was close by. But I think they were sent to like Albuquerque or something, or yeah, I think they were sent to they were staying in Albuquerque, which was like an hour or two drive to get to the set. Set started at like 6:30 every morning. So that was, stressful for a lot of people. They felt like they were kind of robbed out on that. It wasn't good pay from what I heard. There was a big thing was there was lack of meetings apparently. Like they didn't have a whole lot of meetings. Like they just kind of go and do things. So people were feeling like they weren't on the same page. Like they didn't know what the hell was going on, and because of that, that kind of sparked some concerns for safety and whatnot. But eventually, those long hours, the long rides from the hotel and production led workers to walk off set, and really just a couple hours before this accident. So 6:30 that day on the 21st, they were supposed to start work. Apparently, the people that walked off, they were just packing their stuff and they were on their way out. But yeah, like I said, definitely some safety concerns there as well. Haylana Hutchinson actually was trying to advocate for better conditions and hours throughout this time. So throughout the short period that they were actually on set at the Bonanza Ranch in New Mexico, she was trying to get, you know, advocate for more safety meetings or just meetings in general and trying to improve conditions. I don't know if she was actually trying to get people hotel rooms transferred over to closer to the set or whatnot, but she was advocating trying to get some better things going for these people because they were complaining. um But I guess what was interesting is though, so the people walked off. They were all union workers. Apparently, the movie, so like let's call it management, which would be like Alec Baldwin and Joel Souza, and I think it was Durango Films is like their little production company that they made for this and whatnot. And yeah, I think somewhere down the line they knew this was happening, so they had non-union workers ready to go. So the day that, which was October 21st, 2021, everybody walked out. The people that did walk off on set, they were replaced right away with non-union workers. So they were union workers that actually left and non-union workers came on. So that's like real right there. That's a no-no as well. You don't do that. When jobs are supposed to be union, you don't cut them in with non-union people. That causes issues. So this was a very shady set from my understanding. I mean, they were trying it from what I read, it's like they were trying to break all the rules of the book. Like, yeah, hey, tell them we'll get the hotel next to the set. But really, we'll get it 2 hours out, and by the time it all happens, they won't say shit. We'll also not pay him dick. We'll just hold off on that as well so we can make more money on the film. Yeah, screw the safety meetings too, because it's just gonna cost us money as well. So that's kind of what I'm getting from this. It was just kind of like, they were in this set in the middle of, you know, desert New Mexico where Hollywood's prying eyes weren't really on it. So I think they were trying to get away with a little bit more than they could, and that's just kind of where we're at there. And so that caused a lot of chaos that day. So people left. You're bringing in non-union people who haven't even been on the set, so they're new. You got that whole onboarding thing going on. So yeah, so that really, there's just a lot of questions here, of what could have happened. I guess it could be 50-50 here. You could have a conspiracy on your hands, or you could have a straight up accident. I don't know. But let's take a look in who's involved. So really, at the top of the list, this is from what I found, by the way, guys. There's probably more information out there. I might have not got to it. But this is what I found, and this is what I'm going to report on. So that's where we're at today. So Haylana Hutchinson, I have on the top here. So Haylana Hutchinson, she is obviously the deceased victim. She's the one who got shot. And my understanding is, so they were doing a rehearsal in this chapel. And what she was asking Alec to do was pull his gun out, just kind of do these shots where he keeps pulling his gun out. But yeah, she was getting snaps, and I think she was just getting everything set up for the actual rolling for everything. And so she kept telling him to do that. Well, somewhere down the line, when he pulled it out, gun went off, and it shot her, I believe, in the chest, exited through her, and then went through who was behind her, Joel Souza, and went through his shoulder. So that's Haylana Hutchinson. She's our victim. She's at the top of the list. Again, she was the lead cinematographer, and she also was advocating for, better conditions for the crew. We got Joel Souza right underneath that. He is the second wounded victim from this. He survived, but he is the director of this movie. He was a writer of this movie. He is a producer of this movie as well. So he has a big role on, overseeing what's happening here and whatnot, but also part of the accident. He was also part of the accident. Okay, so then coming up next, we got Alec Baldwin. He is also a producer. He is actually an actor in this movie. He's starring in this movie. He also wrote this movie with Joel Souza. So he is another person who has his hands deep, in this movie. He's not just an actor acting. He actually, I guess you can say, yeah, I mean, he's invested in this. He's got his own money in this. He's overseeing what's happening. He's making decisions. He's not just sitting around and collecting a paycheck. This movie has to do awesome in order for him to collect a paycheck. It's not like, yeah. So that's kind of where he's at. It's kind of more of like an independent. We're throwing everything we got at this. Let's get this movie done. But he accidentally shot Hutchinson and Souza on accident there. So that's Alec Baldwin. So let's move down the ladder here. So right below, we got the assistant director. This is the guy that handed the gun to Baldwin. So his name's David Halls. So what I was reading was there was another movie he was on. He was fired from it. I don't know what movie it was, but he was on a set where a gun also discharged, but in this case it wounded somebody. Didn't kill him, but it wounded him. So he was fired from that job, and I guess it's just apparently known that I guess he's violated. He's known for violating safety protocols just in general. So that's just real strange and whatnot. So moving down, but I know actually before we move down, so David Hall, like I said, he actually admits somewhere down the line here that he didn't check this gun. Basically, this gun was supposed to be in a spot, or came from a spot, a cart, a room. I don't know exactly, but it came from somewhere where it was supposed to have been inspected by the armorer, and it was supposed to be good. No live rounds. It's, you know what? The armorer put it aside here for this scene. Here you go. Cold weapon. And that's how it happened. And so Alec took the gun thinking it was a cold weapon. Alec admits he actually cocked the gun, but Alec will sit here is still saying he didn't pull the trigger. But the FBI has came back out and said, there's no way, dude. Like, there's no way. Like, it had to have been pulled by a finger, you know? And I really think here at the end of the day, like with the FBI saying that, I still don't think like Alec is like somebody that is going to go to jail for this. I mean, he might get, he's already settled with, Helena's husband, but there might be more to come, on this where he might have to pay out on it. But I don't think like he's responsible in the way, like he's responsible, but he's not. So I think that's what we're going to find out. And again, like I know he's got money and whatnot, but it was an accident. He didn't like come point blank and just shoot her and say, fuck you, bitch. He was he was doing a role. He thought he had a cold weapon. I mean, I'm going to get more into Alec here. So don't think I'm really, sticking up for him. But I'm just saying, like, that's kind of where we're at. But anyway, so let's move down. Okay, so now we got the armor who's Hannah Gutierrez Reed. I like to call her HGR. Call her HGR for tonight. So she's the armor of the movie. Basically, she's in charge of the weapons and ammunition that are on site. So when this shit comes on, she's responsible for it. She makes sure it's locked up, make sure the shit's separate, and then like she's really in charge of, bringing that stuff all together and laying out safety, and whatnot. So according to HGR, claims live rounds were not on site or on set. Doesn't know how they got there, and then she's now blaming the ammo supplier for how that could have got there. What's I gonna say here? So that I guess what was interesting is, so she was at that chapel or wherever they were doing where the accident happened, wherever that site was. And so I guess she claims that she was in there doing something. I don't quite know what. She wasn't preparing a weapon. That I can tell you for sure. But she was in that room and then she claims she walked out because a bunch of people walked in. Per COVID protocols back then, apparently there couldn't be so many people in a building or in wherever they were at. So she just walked out per COVID, regulations and whatnot, and says she has no idea that they were even rehearsing for the scene with the gun. So kind of weird, but HGR, the armor, wasn't even there when this happened. She didn't hand the gun over to anybody. She basically was not there. David Wells grabbed a gun, handed it to Baldwin. Baldwin cocked it and then accidentally pulled the trigger. So, but one more step down the ladder, then, this is the last person on the ladder here that I think. So the people I'm talking about here are the people from what I've read that I think have somewhat of a role in it. And I guess that's what we want to pick apart to kind of see if any one of them is actually responsible for this or if it's just really this effed up mess, really. So last person's Seth Kenny. He was the mentor to Hannah Gutierrez Reed and recommended for her to do this position on this set to be the armor. So I don't know who he talked to, but he recommended her, for this job. He owns a weapons and prop rental company called PDQ Media Arms and Prop LLC out in I think it's LA or something, or out in California. But he was supposed to have supplied the blanks and the prop weapons for this movie. He claims that everything should have been blanks and whatnot. They're so this guy's trying to kind of pull himself away from this, but I mean, when you look at a root cause analysis, I mean, kind of starts from whoever supplied the ammo. Now, that's if that's a straight up accident, but if it was sabotage, that could have been anybody, right? So, so that's who's involved with this. Those are the main people that I think, we should be looking at, because right now, like I said, there's still an investigation going on. There's probably a lot more names out there that we don't know of. Probably have to do with those disgruntled people that fucking walked off on all this. Anything could have happened. But let's get into the 21st and like what happened. So on October 21st, the crew was getting ready to shoot the scene where Alec would be pulling out a gun and then shooting his victim. Okay. So this is where, like I said, like we've been talking, like this is where it gets weird, because before the accident happened, he was handed a gun by the assistant director who told him the gun was cold. So like if you're not sure what I mean when I say a gun is cold, that's supposed to mean like there's no like live ammunition in there. Like there's nothing in there. And it's not like, so if you pull the trigger, nothing should happen. But there was a bullet in there. And so let's just step back for a second. So my understanding here is there's supposed to be a team of people that inspects an actual firearm before that actually gets in the hand of an actor. All right. So the armor is supposed to be the one who initially loads it and handles all the ammunition, like I was saying earlier, and all the guns. So they'll load it, they'll put it all together. So then they hand it off to somebody else. And in this case, I don't know if it was supposed to be the assistant director or if it was supposed to be like some other prop master or something like that. But that person then who gets it from the armorer is supposed to inspect it and just make sure, okay, blank weapons or nothing else, nothing in here at all. Or oh, we got a live round, red flag, let's get this out of here, double check everything. But in this case, Hannah Gutierrez Reed wasn't in the room, so David Hall picked up this gun, did not inspect it, and then handed it to Alec Baldwin. And so Alec Baldwin kind of failed there too. In Hollywood, they do have to go through gun training. I mean, you can't just hold a gun without any training, especially in the past. There has been deaths. Like, good example is The Crow with Brandon Lee. Actually, and after that movie, there was a lot of changes in Hollywood to try to prevent something like this from ever happening. Like, guns can't point at the camera. They use camera tricks, so it makes it look like they're pointing the gun at the camera, but they're really not, pointing it off to the left. Or if there's like a scene where there's actually, more or less, if there's a scene where there's two people here, the guns are always going to be kind of cocked to the left or the right. It will never point at the actual person, but it will look like it on camera. All those steps like really just did not happen. And so it's just very strange. Just very strange. So yeah, once Baldwin, like I said, was given the gun, Hutchinson requested him to do these takes where he takes the gun out. He's pulling the gun out of his holster. He's aiming it right at the camera. So that was probably a no-no right there already, not to do that. But everybody thought the gun was cold. So what the fuck? Let's go ahead and let's push the rules a little bit. If the gun's cold, nothing's gonna happen, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, it happened. He pulled the trigger, shot through her, killed her, wounded Souza, and now there's this huge mess here in the Bonanza Ranch. And nobody really knows like who's really responsible. There's a lot of just gray areas and just missing information, I guess. Well, missing information to us. I'm pretty sure Santa Fe DA probably has everything on this, and they probably know this pretty well, what's going on. I'm waiting to hear an answer. We're all waiting for that. So some of my final questions on this. All right, so we kind of went through everything, so we know how this happened. All right, we just don't know why there was a bullet in there and how it got there. It's really, it's really like the main thing that we just don't know. But I guess, one question is like, was this an inside job, conspiracy, or like an accident? And so let's take a look at it if it was a conspiracy. So, like, I agree. The recipe for conspiracy is definitely here. The poor working conditions, the long hours, the bad wages, the unsafe just work environment. Now, it was only a short period of time before this actually happened. Like they barely shot anything. So they've only were there for like a week and a half. But within that week and a half, like it people got fed up and they left, right? So like I definitely agree that like if you're thinking in a conspiracy setting, like that recipe's there. Like maybe there was somebody so disturbed and disgruntled. Well, fuck, I'm gonna place a bullet in the gun. Everyone's gonna think it was inspected, you know. With all the bullshit going around here, it's not like anyone's gonna catch it, you know. And then we'll see what happens. Maybe the person didn't actually think if somebody did that and actually placed it, maybe they didn't think anybody get hurt. Maybe they thought I would shoot off and it would just fling around and everybody would freak out because they would realize a real gun just or a real bullet just went off. But maybe nobody got hurt. Or maybe somebody just got grazed a little bit or something, maybe that's all they were thinking. It was like it was gonna be a no harm, no foul sort of deal, but it went wrong. It went terribly wrong, right? So kind of like, okay, that's there. Yeah, that could be a possibility. Um, but then I'm like, is this a straight up accident, right? So like there's still like for a straight up accident, the recipe's still there. That recipe of disaster for an accident's still there. Like same deal with the same, kind of things going on, poor working conditions, bad wages, lack of safety, lack of meetings, so everybody's on the same page. It, can lead to missteps in protocol, can lead to just mistakes that lead to, in this case, a death. I totally believe that. Especially if people are feeling fatigue and not well rested, you know. But now the last question here would be, did Alec truly do it though? So I'm gonna say this. I don't think Alec did. I mean, like on purpose. I should say, like, yeah, Alec, he didn't do this on purpose. Like, he didn't put a bullet in his gun and I'm gonna kill Hutchinson for whatever reason. No, he was just acting. I think he was pretty ignorant throughout the whole thing. So like I think what happened was he was told that he had a cold weapon and he had knowledge, and with that knowledge, he put that trust in his crew. And yeah, it's just he put the trust in the crew and on the set, and he pulled that trigger thinking he had a cold gun. Like, I think it's kind of fucked up because it was still a real gun, and he's aiming it at the camera, thinking it's not loaded or whatever, and pulls the trigger. I just, but that's the thing. He tries to step away from that and says he didn't pull the trigger. And get into that in a bit. But that's the fact of the matter though. He pulled the trigger, and I just think he was kind of ignorant about it. Because that's where I think he went wrong. He didn't check that firearm himself. If he had just checked it and, I don't know if they're supposed to pop all the bullets off in their hands and then load it back up, but like if he did that, he would have saw there was a real bullet. He would have raised his flag, and he would have got out of that. Haylana would still be alive, and Joel Souza wouldn't have gotten hurt. I definitely think he went wrong, you know, as an actor, should be trained on firearms, and he should have inspected that weapon. But what you can tell is he is definitely cooperating with the police and whatnot, but I think he is trying to push everything on through the businesses and through practice and protocol and all that, and trying to kind of rid himself of all this. I mean, I kind of understand it's traumatizing. Like he killed somebody, all right, and it's against the law, so that's scary. But it was an accident, and I'll give it that. I don't think he meant for it to happen. I don't think he wanted it to happen, and I don't think he deserves to go to jail for it. Whatever he worked out with Matt Hutchinson, it might be adequate. I mean, it was his wife that died. And the fact that the guy wants to work with Alec now. So who knows? Who knows? But that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of. So my true honest opinion though with this is I am 50-50 because either way, the recipe's there. The recipe's there. I would just say, like, if I was investigating this, my first suspects would be going after the ammo supplier and the armor. So that's that Seth Kenny and then Hannah Gutierrez Reed. So those would be my two first suspects because, for one, without putting a conspiracy theory into it and just thinking of it as an accident, you know, if if the prop company is providing ammunitions of blanks, let's just say, but somehow this accident happens and there's a live round, well, we want to trace that. We want to talk to who supplied that and see if there was a possibility on their end that they accidentally did it. Again, I don't think necessarily somebody sabotaged it, but I mean, that guy could have had a disgruntled employee that was like, "Fuck you, dude," and then just put a bullet in the box that went to the set of rust, and then that happened to have gotten put into a gun. But the other part is blank and a regular bullet are totally different things. Blank is going to be crimped at the end, doesn't have a projectile on it. It's just the gunpowder. That gunpowder can still hurt you and burn you and whatnot if you're on the other side of that, but it won't have a projectile on it. But a bullet will have a projectile at the tip of it. And it's just like totally like obvious, like, oh, that's a bullet. That's gonna launch off and that's gonna go right through somebody, kill them. So it's where I'm kind of like, yeah, I would start with the ammo supplier. But then now I want to work up to the armorer because it's like, okay, well, you're the one that's supposed to load this damn thing. What happened there? You know, did you not actually like load it? Did someone else load it? Did you let someone else load it that shouldn't have? So you'd want to run through all that, try to kind of figure out what could have happened. From there, if I was going to go any further, I wanted to see what the hell's going on with that assistant director, the hell he was thinking, and really go through where he picked that gun up and and make sure he didn't do anything here. But at the end of the day, why didn't he inspect it? He should have, but he didn't. He just called it as a cold gun. So I mean, I guess you could blame him for just being fucking retarded, not inspecting it, just be, oh, cold gun. But then lastly would be Alec. Where is Alec's integrity here, and why didn't he check his own gun? Is it because he is a rich and famous movie star and that's below him and someone else should have done that? That's what it sounds like for sure. That's what it sounds like for sure. Because yeah, I honestly don't think he just put a bullet in the gun and tried to kill Haylana Hutchinson on purpose. And yeah, so that's just kind of where I'm at. But I guess my point is, though, really, Alec, David Wells, and HGR, or Hannah Gutierrez Reed. I think they're all a little responsible here. Even though Hannah had to leave the set for COVID reason, because of COVID restrictions. OSHA says if she was there, this wouldn't have happened. They believe that if she was on site, this would not have happened. So I want to try to understand why she wasn't there, but I want to say though, there's a little responsibility because there was still a bullet in a gun. And if she was supposed to be the one loading that gun, how the hell did it get there? Right. But yeah, then David Wells being the guy who picked the gun up and was like, this is cold. This is a cold weapon. There's there's no live firearms in it. So like not inspecting that and not seeing, the potential threat that was there. But then finally, Alec, like why he didn't search his gun and, and just inspect it just to make sure everything was safe. That's 3 people that could have prevented this for sure. I mean, 3 people that could have prevented this tragic accident, and it just didn't happen. So I mean, like at the end of the day, conspiracy or not, there was still a decent layer that could have prevented this, and it just didn't happen. So I am very interested to hear what happens. I think we're gonna find out soon, maybe a month or two, maybe sooner. I don't know. I think though the Santa Fe DAs is coming to an end on this, and once they do, we'll find out for sure. We'll get that closure, what's going on, and see if they place a blame on anybody or if they just place blame on a company or something. And you know what I mean. I'm just curious. But I am curious to see if they hold like Alec Baldwin criminally responsible for this at all. Again, which in my opinion, I don't think he should be. I just think it was just weird how he always was coming off like, I don't know how it happened. I I didn't pull the trigger. I'll admit I cocked it, but I didn't pull the trigger. It just went off on its own. And a gun like that just like it's believe it or not, a gun like that's just mechanically sound. I mean, I think in one of our last podcasts, me and Jared talked about this or Jared explained it with those old timey Western weapons. I mean, like you had to literally click it back and then pull the trigger. Like it just didn't go off. And I think to do the where you take your palm and you hit the back of the what do you call it? The hammer. I don't think that's as easy. I think Jared was also saying too that like that's not easy as out either. Like so I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I'm just 50-50 on the whole thing. I want to think there's a conspiracy just based off the information, but at the same time, that same like information that makes me want to think it's a conspiracy also fits in for just a straight up accident. So we'll see. We'll see. I really have no idea how long I've been recording here. I don't think it's probably only been like 20 minutes. So I'm just going to cut this episode short. This was a test. I mean, I've never done a solo. So, but I wanted to just get something out there. Me and Jared will be back. We'll be back doing more. I just don't know what video we're gonna do yet. I think Halloween's we might next week. If we do, we might do Edward Scissorhands. I don't know, which is a good movie. But yeah, we'll figure that out. We'll get another good movie going on here, and we'll duck dive deep into it. So, but until then, guys, you can leave now, beat the traffic, or you can stick around. beach or meat? The choice is yours.